Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're looking at 2.4, graphing linear functions. Okay, we're going to be graphing linear functions that may or may not be written in slope-intercept form. Okay, well, slope-intercept form, I'll admit it's probably something you've heard before, but if not, once you see it, I'm sure you'll be like, oh yeah. But here it is. It's a fancy way of referring to the y equals form that we already use, and slope-intercept form is better known as y equals mx plus b. And I'm guessing you went, oh yeah, as soon as you saw that, if you hadn't done it already. Okay, now, when I write mx plus b, okay, the m, the first non-x or y variable, represents, well, hey, we just did a whole lot of that. M is slope. So that's the slope of the graph. And then the other letter, the b, represents the y-intercept of the graph. Okay, now mathematicians, we are very, very unimaginative. Notice it's called slope-intercept form, and the letters represent the slope and then the y-intercept. So completely shocking, I know, but slope-intercept form tells us the slope and the y-intercept. Now let's take an example. If I've got y equals 2/5 x plus 4, well, in terms of the y equals mx plus b, slope-intercept form, for this equation, again, m, okay, now it's mx plus b, so the m is the number right in front of the x. So in this case, m is 2/5. And then the b, notice the b is the number out here by itself that doesn't have an x attached to it, so in this case it's a positive 4. Okay, so again, the m is the slope, and then the b is the y-intercept. Okay, very important you realize it's the y-intercept and not the x. Okay, but for this equation's graph, we would plot our first point at the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept of 4, now remember, if my y-intercept is 4, if this helps you, great. If not, I apologize. But remember, it's a point 0, 4. Okay, it's always going to be 0 comma something, so it's always going to be up or down on the y-axis. Okay, and then we'll plot more points by going, and again, in our slope, remember that guy is rise over run. Alright, so it's a positive 2, so that's going to be up 2, and then it's also a positive 5, so that'll end up being right 5 from the first point. Okay, so again, I've got my first point there at 0, 4, and then I'm going to rise 2, and then run 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. And then I can repeat that process as many times as I feel like it, or as many times as I have space for. But remember, you can always go down and left, being the opposite of up and right, if you want to. So down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, notice that does give me another point that's right in line with the rest of them, so I feel good about life in general. And I can draw myself a nice pretty line through there. Just do another quick example just to hit some of the highlights and things people might mess up on. If I've got y equals 3x minus 5, remember that 3 is really 3 over 1. So for this equation, my m, if you just said 3, I'd be okay with it, but some people are more comfortable writing 3 over 1. I will be happy either way you write it. Okay, now b, a lot of people right now just say, oh, that's 5. Okay, but be careful, it's really a minus 5, because the sign that you have has to come with. So be very, very careful about your signs, because that will make a big impact on things as far as where you plot your line. Alright, so here we go. B is negative 5, so I'm going to do that first. So I go down 5 is my starting point, and then 3 over 1. So positive 3, and then right 1. And then positive 3, and then right 1, etc. And I can do that until I get bored doing it, and then, of course, I can go the other direction if I feel like it as well. Okay, again, all these points line up pretty darn well, so I feel pretty good about what I did. Alright, here's another example, and here's something that people kind of freak out about sometimes. Alright, I got that f of x in there. Okay, remember we talked about that previously. Remember that f of x is a fancy way to say y. Alright, so it's just a fancy y. So really, if you wanted to, you could rewrite this equation as simply y equals negative 2x minus 1. Okay, so if you don't like that f of x, rewrite it. It's not going to hurt anybody's feelings. But for this equation then, okay, m equals whatever it equals, in this case negative 2, and again, write that over 1 if it helps you. Again, I could write it like that right there if I want to. And then b again, we've got a negative sign here that's got to come along for the ride, so it's negative 1. Okay, so again, this just tells me where to start, at negative 1 in the y direction, and then I can go down to right 1, down to right 1, etc. I'll just do a few of those that way, and then I'll do a couple going this way. And again, I'm feeling pretty good about that, so I'll draw myself the straightest line I can. Alright, and call it a day. Now, it was mentioned in objective, but hey, what if the equation is not in slope-intercept form already? Well, again, this is something we've already done. Okay, when I have this equation, if I want to turn it into slope-intercept form, it's a two-step process, first of which I'm going to cancel out my x term. So in this case, Just subtract 4x from both sides, canceling those guys out. Leave me with a positive 3y equals, and again, remember these guys are not like terms, so please, I'm begging you, do not put them together. So that's a negative 4x and then a positive 15. Again, I write the x term first because that's kind of the form I'm going for. The x term should be first and the non-x term should be second. At this point I can divide by the 3 to cancel those, but remember you got to divide everybody else as well. So I've got y equals negative 4/3 x, okay, which is a useful number for us. And then the 15 over 3, well, 15 divided by 3 is 5. Okay, so then I've got my equation in a much nicer form. And again, negative 4/3, the number in front of the x, that's my slope. And then the b is the number over here by itself, in this case a positive 5. And again, that just tells you where to start. So it starts at positive 5 on the y, and then I can go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1, 2, 3 to plot my next point. And again, just repeat that as many times as you feel like it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Well, hopefully you feel like it at least a couple times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And again, you can always reverse that, so 4 up, and then 3 to the left. Again, it looks like it's pretty darn straight. So hopefully I can draw this. But there you go. Okay, one more quick example here. X minus 2y equals negative 12. Again, it's one of those things that if you want to write the 1 in there, that's great. If you don't want to write in there, well, then don't. Just up to your personal comfort level. Okay, but again, same basic idea holds true. We need to cancel the x terms by either adding or subtracting to cancel it, in this case subtracting. So I've got negative 2y equals negative 1x minus 12. Awful lot of negatives in there. But now we divide by the negative 2y, and again we divide everybody. And then see what we end up with here. I've got a negative 1 over a negative 2, so that's a positive 1/2. And then we've got the x. And then a negative 12 over a negative 2 gives me a positive 6. Alright, so now my m equals out 1/2, sitting in front of the x, and then the b equals a 6. And again, just go ahead and do your standard graphing. Start at 6, go up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2 a couple times, or even 3 or 4 times. And then, again, you can always take it back in the other direction. My advice is to get used to that because later in the year it will become very, very important to be able to graph lines going in both directions. So for now it's not going to hurt you if you don't, but later on it will kind of smart a little bit. Well, as it says here, a natural question at this point is, since f of x is just a fancy way to write y, will we ever see an equation such as 3x plus 7 f of x equals 35? Question mark. End quotes. Okay, well, will we ever see a question such as, or an equation such as that? Well, I have a one-word answer for you. Okay, the reason being, quite honestly, if you look at that thing, I mean, holy cow, does that look like a big, horrible, nasty mess to you? Well, it sure does to me. And so basically, to not confuse the person you're writing the equation for, you will probably never, ever, ever see an equation written like that. So don't freak out. If this is the equation I want you to see, I will write it as 3x plus 7y equals 35, because that's just a heck of a lot nicer to look at. That guy up there, oh my gosh. Yay, very happy down there. Alright, and as per usual, here's a couple of problems for you to try. There you go, and I'll see you in class.